All right, Kingdom Builders. This is Barney. Barney, introduce yourself.
Hello there. I'm a good friend of Kingdom Builders and Sean, and we go to the same church. We're a lot alike. I'm on a lot of drugs right now because I have aggressive cancer. And yeah, I got a smile on my face and walking through the weeds, but Jesus is my gardener, and he's in there with me with a weed whacker, brother.
That's awesome. And I love it because we met a couple years ago now. Gosh, it was maybe 3 years ago. We haven't been hanging out that long. I mean, it took me a while to finally warm up and
Well, people are suspect usually of me anyway.
yeah, and
Takes a
then
while for them to warm up.
ask you out on a date, now, but we've been a coffee bunch
Yeah, yeah.
and but I remember when I first met you. I don't know if you told me or someone told me that, because I just watched the Jesus
Oh yeah,
Revolution,
baby.
and you're like, that was me. I was there. So
Yeah.
so that's why this first episode with you is going to be kind of unpacking your story
Okay.
and just kind of looking at that experience just to kind of because I think it's awesome, it's powerful, and it's
That's literally like over 50 years ago. You
yeah,
get that?
it's
You
crazy.
still remember it?
Probably
50
more. Well,
years
there's a well,
ago.
there's a movie made of it. So
Yeah,
if
we
you
just watched the movie.
just watch the movie.
I'm a little bit older than I look. Or I'm at.
Well, tell us about growing up.
Well, yeah, I just, the whole hippie. It was really the hippie, sex, love, drugs, rock and roll thing, I mean, I didn't know anything different. There was no religion, no.
Yeah.
My dad was actually like what you'd call an atheistic Muslim because my last name is Hamad and I'm Middle Eastern, but um, so it wasn't anything to do with God, nothing,
Yeah.
If it rained, it wasn't God, and if it's sunny, it wasn't God. So I had pretty much free rein my whole life to pretty much do whatever I wanted. There was nothing that was anathema or out of bounds.
So there was in your dad being atheist Muslim, like I just nothing, right?
It was that he had the blood. He was
Yeah.
a warrior. Had the warrior blood. The
Okay.
tribes that those guys are all from in the Middle East, they're just, I mean, like unless you are around it, you have no idea how strong those guys are.
Oh, really?
Warriors, they're just phenomenal.
Oh,
And
wow.
and thousands of years of tribal warriorship in history that these guys just they know how to fight. And Teddy Roosevelt knew that, so he invited my grandfather over from Lebanon to fight with him in Roosevelt's Rough Riders, and he got easy naturalization by doing it. And so, but he fought, baby, and then my dad fought in World War II and fought, all the major battles in the South Pacific, and just dude was a killer, man. He was good.
Wow.
Messed him up, but he was good. He survived it, man. He knew that too. They just know how to fight. They're professional fighters, and that was in his blood.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I didn't
pretty
know. I
scary.
didn't know that part
Yeah,
about it.
pretty scary.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the meanest man I ever met.
Was he mean to you?
Oh ho ho!
Yeah.
They eat their young in my family.
Really?
Yeah, they do. I mean, I can't tell you. And he had complex PTSD from it, alcoholism, plus the warrior blood. So
Yeah.
yeah, from a very young age, I was looking for a way out of that craziness. And I'd go roam the streets as a kid and go in the alleys, the railroad tracks, the park.
Where
I
was
was always
this?
gone down in the Compton Paramount area. It was a brutal area back then. It was like the Wild West.
Okay.
That's crazy down in LA.
When did you? So then, sex, drugs, rock and roll, hippie life.
Yeah, big time.
How old were you there? I mean, high school into
I started
college,
junior high.
junior high.
Yeah, junior high really early because I had so much, and I didn't know this obviously. I had so much trauma and pain in my life from all the violence and the addiction that I myself was looking to escape it. So as soon as I got around it, alcohol or the drugs we all had,
Yeah.
because I couldn't wait to use it and just get out of that world, and I was instantly taken out of it. Junior high.
That's great.
So from junior high all the way through high school, pretty much I was, living that life.
No parents' oversight, like nothing. They
No, they were drunk a lot
over there.
and they fought a lot. So I left home when I was 17. So yeah, it was pretty brutal. I mean, I talk about this and I have for 50 years in all my
Yeah.
testimonies as a pastor. People don't believe me.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. So, and that's okay because it is a little bit. Even when I try to describe it, it's a little bit weird. but it's actually was probably worse than I'm describing it because I'm I'm trying to honor my crazy father and mother, but it's hard.
Going back to like the
Oh yeah,
commandments, right?
damaged people, man. So the damaged people, and I was one. I could chip off the old block. You know, uh, I was so chronic and in it, and so acute in all my dysfunction that I knew I was going to probably die young. You know, so by the time I was 18, I started to say, I don't think I'm going to make it, and that's when about that time the Jesus revolution in Costa Mesa began to happen in a big way. And these guys were all my buddies. They were the guys I surfed with at Huntington Beach, and didn't ever wear anything but baggies and huaraches and all this. That's just old terms for sandals and the board shorts we used to wear. We never got I never took a shower hardly a couple of days a week. But and we were all in the same boat. We just didn't have any purpose in life at all.
Yeah.
It's called nihilism. I don't know if you ever heard the term before.
No.
Nihilism is the purposelessness and no meaning to the universe. And that was exactly what we had. If I had, it didn't matter what I did. It was just no meaning to any of it. It was total chaos. So when I got invited to look at a different, compassionate, ordered way of living and a compassionate God, I was blown away. I mean, I couldn't sleep at night. Couldn't use drugs anymore, because it was too big for me to even understand. I was just overwhelmed.
Wow. Okay. Let's start there. So was that from the first time you went to a service or the first time and then like was it almost immediate or what
Yeah, yeah, it
was it?
was because what had happened was we were surfing and the guy said to me, "Hey, let's go to a concert." And I said, "Yeah, I'd just like to go to a concert. You got any pot?" He goes, "I don't smoke pot at these concerts, and it's in a tent." I said, "Okay, yeah, I can go just like this. I don't have to shower." He goes, "No, just put your board in, and go. We'll just walk in." Well, the tent used to be there at Calvary Chapel before they had a building. It was a tent, and they'd do the concerts there, and it was Christian. And I'm sitting there, and I'm going, "This is great music, but it sounds different." Well, it's Christian music. They were all talking about the joy of the Lord, and there must have been, 2,000 kids like me there with long hair,
Oh wow.
glassy eyed, singing to Jesus. And I freaked out. I couldn't handle it. I'd never seen it before. And then Chuck got up to speak, Papa Chuck, we called him, and it's like, he was sort of like Greg Laurie. You know who Greg Laurie is?
Yeah.
Harvest and all the ministries
Oh,
out there.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was there at the same time. We were born like in the same hospital and stuff, same age.
Yeah.
And
Well, the movie Jesus Revolution, like Greg Glory is like a big part of that movie, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he really tied into the culture of it. I went to a different culture after that, after I got converted, but I stayed connected. But he took a different path. But the point being is that this thing was just filled. This room, this tent was filled with guys because Chuck was like the father we never had. He
Wow.
smiled, big old bald headed guy with a smile. He just talked real boring and slow, and he was real safe. And we felt like he was our dad. Greg had many fathers in his life,
Yeah.
and we just felt like he was. We called him Papa Chuck. It was wild.
That is wild.
And then through that, I made the jump to God the Father because I didn't. If God was a father, I wasn't up for that. No way. Because my dad had his
Yeah.
ways. I didn't want a God like that. Wanted nothing to do with it. So when Chuck came out, smiled, was loving, talked about a compassionate God, forgiveness, all this stuff, I just said, I'd never knew that even existed. Could this be real?
Yeah. Wow.
So I jumped on it right away, or God jumped on me right away,
Yeah.
however you want to see it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to let that go because I had a lot of suicidal ideation,
Okay.
and that surfaced in not wanting to be alive anymore. I probably wouldn't have killed myself, but I just wanted to disappear.
Yeah.
That's that nihilism type thing.
Okay.
And so that went away. And suddenly I had joy. I didn't want to kill everybody I was around. I mean, it was really free. It was like a new world to me, literally. Night and day world.
And how old were you?
18.
18. So were you still in high school or
You know, I was in college.
you were in
I
college?
left home
Okay, I'm
for,
sorry.
yeah, that's all right. No, I left home for college when I was 17 to play baseball. And I was a real good athlete,
Okay.
but when I was sober and clean, I was real good. But I wasn't sober and clean very often.
Not very dependable then.
No, gosh, no. You know, it's like, but I played in Iowa. I went because all my buddies were going to go to the North Shore in Oahu when they graduated to surf, and I knew I wouldn't come back from that. I knew what
Oh
was
wow.
there. I knew what was
Okay.
there. I knew my buddies. You know,
Yeah.
his surf culture back then was brutal, man. Huntington Beach, you know, they were dirtbags. I
Okay.
was too. So I said, so God just said, go as far as you can and get in a cornfield, get sober, and go to this school, and I did.
Okay.
I had no idea. I was next thing I knew from Long Beach to a cornfield in Iowa where I got clean because there was no rehab back then. I had no clue what that was.
Yeah. So was this was after the tent, the concert, then you went to go play baseball after that.
Yeah. And
After
that movement, that Jesus Revolution was happening at that time.
yeah. Got it.
Yeah. And then I would come back, obviously, and go to the concerts. And then it's like, and I was so attracted to it, but there's nothing like that in Iowa going on, you
No,
know.
absolutely not. I mean, like I grew up in Minnesota where it's right close to Iowa and
Yeah.
it's cornfields
You
and
know, you know,
yeah.
you know.
And it's a small Lutheran church and
And I would
even now they don't play have
and
those
I wouldn't
concerts.
go into a Lutheran church. I don't even know how to spell it, you know,
Yeah.
back then. And I never related to spiritual people that were like that, religious people.
Yeah.
I never had any. If you had board shorts on and you smelled like salt water and you were smelled like tobacco, I could relate to you. No, that's about it. When I saw people in suits or nice clothes or nice living, I said that's certainly not my life. I don't know what to do
Yeah.
with that. I'm not living that way. So I would come back and forth to school and stuff. And then finally, when I was about probably 19, a year and a half, 2 years later, it really took my commitment to Christ. And then the Jesus Revolution was in full boom by then. And it
Okay.
wasn't 2,000 kids anymore. It was
Oh
10,000.
wow. That's
And
cool.
all of them were like me. They thought Jesus was a hippie, like you see in The Chosen.
Yeah.
That's who Jesus really was. He just walked around and ate and talked to people and healed them. Pretty cool. That's all I wanted to do.
Okay. That's wild.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And so 2 years in, I mean, so you've gone from dirtbag on Manhattan Beach surfing
Huntington Beach,
or Huntington Beach.
my favorite.
What did I say? Oh,
Manhattan, but I
oh,
surfed there too,
oh,
Hattie's. Oh yeah, baby. I
okay.
can't remember believe I remember all this stuff.
I
South Bay.
okay. Oh man, so dirtbag beach life. And when you say dirtbag, like go like what do you mean by that?
We called ourselves dirtbags. In fact, the Long Beach State 49 sports teams are called dirtbags.
Are they?
Yeah. It's just a gruff,
Okay.
hardened, grizzled person.
Yeah.
You just kind of almost a street person, really.
I mean, how did like when you were in that dirtbag part of your life, like how did you survive as far as, income,
Food stamps.
food stamps? Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I wasn't proud. And back then, unlike today, I could get soda pop and stuff at the 7-Eleven store. They can't do it anymore with food stamps.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I was on food stamps for 3 years and until I got sober and clean and started actually living a clean life.
Okay.
And all of a sudden I got success. It's things I started to get good at school. I mean, think about this. I was headed to medical school at UC Irvine. I couldn't think. I don't know how. It
Yeah.
was a miracle of God, and that was where I wanted to go. I was in advanced statistics for research that I had to take to go to the medical school for research. I was flunking. I had no idea what chi-square and matrices were.
Yeah.
All these Latin symbols and everything. I was just like, so I was getting ready to quit, and that's when I got really like converted in the sense of solid. I don't care about anything else. This saved my life. You saved my life, man. I'm going in with both feet and other people's feet as well. I just
Okay.
was all in. And so I remember when my brain woke up because it was in that class, the advanced statistics class, that I had to take for research at the medical school. And I said, I'm going to quit because I'm flunking this. And in like a week after my brain the fog started to clear and I aced that class. All of a sudden I just ripped it up, I don't know. It was pretty bizarre. And then I got converted and I said, I think I'm going to do better being a pastor to youth. I wanted to be a youth pastor. and I could relate to them. And so, you can imagine some of our youth groups were bigger than the church itself.
Oh yeah. And that was still, were you still in the Southern California, LA area?
I had committed to it
Okay.
because I went back into the drug and the kind of the gang culture where I came out of,
Okay.
and they knew me. So I went back into that and came back onto campus
Oh wow.
a year later, a year or two later after graduating, and here he comes. What are you doing here? Well, I'm just here because I don't know. I just want to hang with you guys and invite you to church. And they're like, church, you know, that's the last place. So, but anyway, out of that, there was such a revival going on. These kids, you couldn't keep them out of church.
Wow.
And we used their music, and we used, like early computer technology, to play songs that they understood. And then we'd give a little altar call afterwards about, we know you don't have any meaning in life. Jesus can give you that. We just see kids converted. I mean, it's just like, I can't even describe it.
That's cool.
Yeah, but they were hurting. These kids were hurting.
And you could relate to that.
Yeah, and the
Right.
same. And the funny thing is, today it's happening to kids today, just in a different way. They just don't have any purpose, and they're depressed, and this world doesn't. They don't know who they are in this world, and the need is there. So there's a little new, like a revolution, a revival, a renewal happening with kids today. That's awesome, phenomenal.
Yeah, and we see that. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, we're seeing that in North County, like with what Daybreak is doing, and
big time. And
it's so cool.
Ben Graves, that
Oh yeah.
pastor's son's a part of that, and that's what it was like with us. And they use the music, they do mosh pits, it's just they do skateboarding, it's like it's what kids do,
Yeah.
you know.
Meet them where they are.
Yeah, and then you hit them with Jesus, baby, knock them off their skateboard.
Well, okay, so that is, you are 22 going back
Yeah,
into
so
this.
now I've decided, and then of course, I mean, I was a player, man, in the the sexual world, the relational
Yeah.
world. I mean, that's just what they were used for, right? We just use women, they use us, whatever. Well, then I became a Christian. I said, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I got to stop, you know? So I stopped all that and I said, Lord, I am not going to date again, Lord, until I meet the woman I'm supposed to marry.
Cool.
No dating at all. And these women would try to date me, and nope, sorry, ain't going to do it, and I'm walking along the beach one day at Huntington Beach, and there's my bride. She's walking towards me, and I knew it. Married her, been married 50 years.
And that's Linda.
It is.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So you just knew it.
Yeah, I knew it because it was when you honor a woman compared to using her, it's just a whole different vibe in the relationship. And I was used to using, and I was used to being used as well. And all of a sudden I said, I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. I want to honor the whole person. I want to love them as Jesus would love them. That changed, for me, it changed how we did relationships. And then, but it was a little bit like Little House on the Prairie met Game of Thrones. That's
Yeah.
what it was like when we got together. Because she just,
Oh yeah, I can see that.
if I hadn't met a Christian, she wouldn't even have looked at me.
I can see that.
Our first 4 dates were at Calvary Chapel. We took concerts, Bible study. So awesome.
Today, I just gotta fast forward 50 years. Is it still Little House on the Prairie versus Game of Thrones?
Yeah,
With Game of
a
Thrones?
little bit. Yeah. So Jesus changes you, and he changes her. She's probably a little more aggressive than she used to be, and I'm a little more calm than I used to be, which is kind of scary, But she's got a little more of that fight in her, and but she's just my wife is just an amazing lady. I mean, spiritual legacy, intergenerational spirituality like nothing I've ever seen before. And that's why I was attracted to it. These people are freedom fighters. In World War II, the family was freedom fighters in Holland against the Jew. They hid the Jews against the Nazis, like Corrie ten Boom and Anne Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were from Holland. She's Dutch, and they would hide
Really?
Jews in their houses. They
Oh,
have
wow.
false doors and everything else. So we go back there, we'd see that these people are studs,
That's
and
so
they're
cool.
Christians.
That's so
And
cool.
they sacrificed almost their lives to hide these Jews. So that's the kind of strength they have.
Wow. And that's Linda's family?
That's
Like
her legacy.
wow.
That's her fam, her mom, and everybody. Her mom's came here from Amsterdam. So I saw that in her, and on top of it, she was beautiful. Healthy women, look different than unhealthy women in terms of the partying lifestyle. And I could see
Oh
that.
yeah,
She was pure. She hadn't walked almost at all in the darkness where I walked. I could see it. She was amazing. She still is.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
How did you said you walked on the beach and you knew it. Like, was it that easy? Like, how did you know all of this?
It was, you know what it was? It was somebody like her. I
Okay.
knew when I saw her. She was
Okay.
sweet. She was gracious. She had beauty inward and outward. And I was almost scared. For the first time, I was scared to ask somebody to go on a date.
Yeah.
So I asked her out for a date. I said, "You want to go?" So before we left Huntington Beach, their family had a trailer down there. I said to her, "Hey, you want to go out Saturday night?" She goes, "Ah, I already got a date." She was a popular girl. She was
Yeah.
popular. I said, "Okay." And then I said, "Well, how about the next Saturday? I know this Bible study at Calvary Chapel where she said, "Yeah, let's do it." So that was our first date. And we prayed in the car together. It was
Oh,
ridiculous.
oh wow, that's good.
It's really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
really good.
Fascinating. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know you've talked a lot about all the theology. Like you're a theologian, right? Like you go very deep into your training and all of that.
Yeah, I took a different track than Lori did. So Greg, when he left Calvary, he had a group of people. He went to Riverside. He had a group of people that just said he used to say to them, "Why are you?" It was like a house group,
Yeah.
and he'd say to them, "Why? I'm not a pastor. You guys need to get a pastor." He'd say that to them because he didn't know. I mean, he
Yeah.
just graduated from, I don't know, Marina High School, or I don't know, Newport Harbor, and he was reluctant to do it. He said, "I'm not a pastor," and he wasn't. But they said, "We want you to teach us."
Wow.
So I had that with I went into youth work, but I went into denomination. He didn't. He went into a movement. I went into a denomination, and the reason why is because my wife was in a denomination called the Reformed Church,
Okay.
and their family was embedded in it. So I thought, well, I better, if I'm going
Yeah.
to be a pastor, I've got to get the credentials and
Yeah.
and toe the line. So when I got into seminary, my brain had woke up, from all the years of dormancy and fog,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I take ancient Hebrew and Greek and be teaching it in 2 weeks.
Oh
My
wow.
mind just clicked in. So it was kind of like I was moving in that because it was amazing that I mean, I couldn't believe that I was teaching Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, after having taken it for 2 weeks. I was
Yeah.
teacher assisting with the kids. So my brain was awake. So I just kept going in that. And then finally they walked up to me and they said, "Hey, by the way, we're going to put you on a track for a PhD at Oxford." That was like, because the guys I studied with, the professors, were the best in the world, and that's what they did. And I said, "Nah," I said, "I don't want to be a teacher or a professor. I want to be a pastor." So it's Fuller Seminary, and so at the time they had a track for pastors only, pastoral track. So
Okay.
three, but I was doing all the theology and all the study and all the hard stuff. But I said, "No, I'm not going to do that anymore. I want to be a pastor. I want to preach." So I started taking more preaching classes and how to minister to the sick,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So that was a whole different track. So then I ended up in there. Then I got ordained in Reformed Church in Paramount. I was pastoring there, and I became a pastor there. And then I stayed pretty much in that slot of being a pastor, in churches like that. But I also had a real affinity for the Vineyard. You know what the Vineyard is with
No.
John Wimber? It was a charismatic movement.
Okay.
Yeah, and I got a real affinity for that. I like a little bit of the Holy Spirit open, charismatic use of the spiritual gifts, speaking in tongues and all that stuff.
Okay.
But I was in a denomination where that didn't happen, but I
Yeah.
like to do it on the outside.
Well, okay, so you said spiritual gifts. So you talk a couple times now about your brain awakening and you not being all foggy from all the drugs and everything you did earlier. Like, do you think like how is that as far as your spiritual gifts and the timing of that? Like, all of a sudden your brain turning on and now you're some sort of genius. You can take a Hebrew class, which I'm sure is not easy, right?
Chicken tracks upside down, man.
Is that, yeah,
Unbelievable.
I
All of a sudden it made sense to me.
that
The
like
teacher's going,
so
"You got to help these other guys out."
there's got to be something with the spiritual gifting there, isn't there?
Well, I still have it. I still have it. Like, for instance, today, I still study ancient languages like Assyrian,
Hmm.
and Sumerian. I still study it on the side, but I always had a heart for people. I didn't want to be in a classroom
Yeah.
studying ancient languages. I wanted to be on the street, because that's where I was from,
Yeah.
helping people, and that's what I ended up doing. I ended up having churches of recovery. They were recovering churches, really, is what they were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back to my question. The spiritual giftings that you've been given, like over your life, like, can you look back at that time and when you were in college, like, is that where you're like, okay, like that's the time where it's like all of a sudden something clicked and something was different in you?
Yeah, and like if all of a sudden, I mean, I was, I was a social misfit,
Yeah.
you know, uh, and I was dangerous because of where I grew up and fought all the time. I didn't like people,
Yeah.
at all. Especially, I mean, I never had good friends that lasted very long because we'd always end up in a fight, loaded and end up in a fight. It was a brawl. All of a sudden, I love kids. Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
What, you're doing youth work? Are you kidding me? You're only 19 years old. That was God. God put that in my heart.
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
you know. It was my parents didn't believe it.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And my dad found out that I'd become a Christian. I was in the house talking to him and I said, "You suckers need Jesus too." He ran me out with a fist.
Did
He
he?
pounded my butt right there. I said, "You wait, Dad. He's going to slay your noggin." And it took a while, but he did.
Really?
Oh, knocked him right on his butt. Because the harder they are, the harder they fall.
Oh yeah. Tell us about that.
It was awesome. Well, I had gone to seminary and it was real expensive and it was graduate school. Everybody was really excited because I got in. I don't know how I got in because I wasn't a very good student,
Yeah.
you know. And my sister was a she was the TV show game show. She was a freak. She went on them all and she won.
Oh, she's on the game shows?
All the game shows back then. She was on them. She put my name in. I said, I don't want to go on a game show. I don't go, yeah, no, it's not my style. So, but anyway, my wife wanted to go down and try out. So we went down and tried out. And, but before that, my dad had said to me, he goes, "You're getting married and you're going to go to seminary." He says, "You don't even have a job." He says, "How are you going to pay for it?" And I said, "I don't know. I think God's going to take care of me." And he goes, "Son," he goes, God doesn't plow the lower 40. And it's his way of saying you shouldn't do that. So, but I did it anyway. I signed up and got into seminary. And then that fall, when I first got into seminary, I got invited to go on to the Hollywood Squares game show. Peter Marshall and all these people, Paul Lind, and I won for a week straight.
What?
I had no clue. I got thousands and thousands of dollars in cash, trips to Europe. My seminary paid for. My dad was in the audience. And I looked up at him and I said, "I told you God's going to take care of me."
What?
He got baptized the next week.
Are you
He
serious?
ran to the baptismal, jumped in the pit, baby. Hey, give me that, God. It was unbelievable, really. It was an amazing time.
Wow.
And then at church, they had
Wow.
to have, because they were smokers, they had to have ashtrays for after the service so the smokers could have, the smokes. It was pretty cool. But he did. He became a Christian. My mom, too, got baptized.
God showed up and paid for your seminary
Oh,
school.
I was
That
sad.
was
I
that
was
was
sad.
wild.
We had in my wife's Volkswagen on the way home. She had a Fox stroller from Dicker and Dicker of Beverly Hills and Norman Rockwell print. I just cleaned. God cleaned up, but He cleaned up through me.
That's wild.
It is. It's pretty
That's
well.
so wild. Oh gosh. And then your dad seeing that
He
through
was
you.
he was stunned because before that I went on there. I said, "You just wait, God's going to take care of me." And then he had said, "Yeah, but God don't do the work. You gotta do your own work. You gotta work hard, and you gotta get paid for it." I said, "Well, I'm not worried about it," because I was a real hippie. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't care. In the Bible, it says, "Birds of the air have nests and the foxes have holes, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." You want to do it Jesus style, man. You really want to go on it. And see, I was dumb enough to do that. And pretty soon I had a nest and I had a hole for my the fox, somewhere to lay my head.
That's cool.
Took care of me.
That's cool. Yeah, you don't see that. I mean, what are the stats on that? It's like if a child is accepted first, it's only going to be like 15% or something like that that the rest of the family will. But
Yeah, yeah.
and the dad's always up in the higher 90s. If the dad is
Oh,
comes to Jesus first, then the likelihood of the family being saved is going to be that much. It's in the 90s.
well, that's that
But
whole thing about revolution I'm talking about in the
yeah,
Bible. That it's out of your control. It's out of your control.
yeah,
People just the Holy Spirit just starts opening up. The Holy Spirit works on them, on the toughest and the hard. I lived next to a wild animal of a person, of a kid, and he became Christian. And we used to go to Bible study every 5 nights a week in his car. We'd just drive around and go to Bible study.
Wow.
He's crazy.
Tell me about this guy.
Oh, Jimbo. Jimbo couldn't read or write. Hated school. Fought like he was a bouncer like in 10th grade. So such a good fighter.
Wow.
Kick anybody's butt. He's my neighbor. And then he finally dropped out of high school about 10th grade. After 10th grade, he dropped out because he couldn't read. He had dyslexia.
Okay.
So, but he was real talented, like with jewelry and stuff. And he was the first one to retire down the road. But he saw what happened to me and went to Calvary Chapel, and then we got involved with the Teen Challenge out in Riverside. We got involved with that, which is a drug and a like, prostitute rehab thing. So he got real attracted to that, and he got crazy wild, man, for Jesus.
That's cool.
Because nobody could believe it was it's these stories almost like Saul where they have these radical conversions. Yeah. But
well, and I think too, like what you just like, so you said he saw you. He saw the impact God had on you.
Yeah.
In following Jesus and giving your life to Jesus. And he's like, I want that.
Yeah, and we would drive together to the concerts. He liked music. So we had an MGB GT we'd get in a little tiny little thing, car, and we'd go to the concerts, and he loved it, and that sucker fell hard, man.
What I'm just trying to think here, like question on how you were prior, and I'm just trying to think of like how we would give other people tips on how they live their life and how much how they plant their seeds, right? So what type of seeds did you plant with Jimmy? I mean, obviously, I like the one where your dad's. We just told him, like, you need Jesus, and then he kicks your butt.
I would go into the Cerritos Mall back then. I think it's called something Westfield Mall now.
Okay.
In Cerritos, I just walk in and start praying for people.
Just praying.
I just say, hey, look, I'm just.
You'd walk up and
I say, I'm a new Christian, and I'm learning how to share my faith. Can I share my faith with you? And
wow.
You'd be surprised how many people would say yes. And then at the end of sharing my faith about how I became a Christian and I came to the Lord, they'd pray with me. They'd bend their knees right in the mall and pray with me.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a little bit like people said, man, you're like a Jesus freak.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you got to be careful there. I said, I think I was a freak long before I knew Jesus. But I had absolutely no fear. That's the way God made me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think
that's the background when I got.
I think you might be like you're on the outside of the standard deviation when it comes to that.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Okay, so
I'm not like that anymore.
Yeah. Well, you probably are, but you
invite him over for dinner and have a glass of wine and say, "Do you know the Lord?"
Oh, that's too funny. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like yeah. You're on the outskirts on that one. I just think most people are going to come in.
There's no doubt.
No, yeah.
That's why I don't share it, because people can't relate to it. They just go, it's nuts for doing that, But
yeah,
I had to calm it way down.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 72 with aggressive cancer right now. You should have seen me when I was 18, fully strong. I mean, that was nuts.
Oh, good stuff. Well, okay, so let's fast forward a little bit now. So at some point, what happens? You and Linda get married. So there's a large adult.
I'm in seminary, going to school. I graduated. It's a 3-year program. I'm doing doctoral work.
Okay.
Which I didn't finish because that was again the kind of thing where I said I don't want to be a scholar. I want to go be a pastor. So I got ordained in the Reformed Church. Okay. And we started in the church growth movement. You ever heard of that?
No.
You know who Rick Warren is?
Yeah.
Okay. Rick Warren, we used to have an institute called the Church Growth Institutes.
Okay. Yeah.
It was Bob Schuler out. And one day this kid walks in who's not doing well in his church plant.
Yeah.
Well, it's Rick Warren. And he got those principles and went and
oh, wow.
He cranked it. That was a church growth movement where you attracted to your church people who were not Christians, but seekers.
Okay.
And you have like in his church, for instance, a lot of his sermons and a lot of the style of ministry was really great music and a real practical sermon about leadership, because they're all leaders out there. They're guys that run businesses, and what is a profile of a really good Christian leader? And it was phenomenal. 3 points only.
Okay.
It was really fun. So I went into the church growth movement, and then we saw where we would plant churches that that like in a bar. We planted a church. One of the churches I pastored in, we started in a Hungry Tiger bar
Oh, wow.
because it was the only thing open on Sunday morning. So we cleaned it up, the puke and everything, and clean it up and have church in there.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it really was. But we knew how to relate to the unchurched really well, and we could design worship services and music and sermons that Christians might not want. Like they might not necessarily say that's really great, but it made it real acceptable. So we took the cookies that were real high on the shelf and brought them down so the kids could get them. This is basically what we did.
Okay.
And the church growth movement went nuts. And Rick Warren was the best example around here. But
Okay.
that happened all over the world where you attracted seekers instead of people that already knew what it meant to be a Christian. And then you discipled them and trained them and got them mature in small groups.
Okay. Fascinating.
A lot there, man. That was
Yeah.
an amazing time. And of course, I was 100% I'll be heathen when I became Christian. I knew that world. I knew what attracted them.
Yeah.
And it had to be entertaining, it had to be funny, it had to be meaningful, but at the same time, it had to be energetic and make a difference in their life. And it couldn't be religious. You did not want to be religious sounding at all, you know. Like we'd pray with our eyes open and just walk around and talk to God, that kind of thing. It's real different.
What is so that's a term that a lot of people can kind of get confused. And so what do you mean by religious?
Religion
And
would be
nowadays, yeah.
religion would be wearing the garb, you know,
Yep.
real clean. Let me polish my
Yep.
badge with you and tell you how much Jesus has changed my life and how successful I am. We
Okay.
preached out of weakness, and we never wanted to appear. So, like for instance, when I would preach, I said, guys, I'm not an authority here. Don't come to me with that.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of Jesus swag. A lot of guys today have Jesus. They're just cool people, man.
Yeah.
They got the hair. I was never like that. I was a reluctant leader. I almost didn't want to be there. I said, because I didn't fit it. So, like for instance, when I preached, I said, my goal here is not to have this amazing sermon where you walk away blown away. My goal here is to get you to get yourself going back to the Bible and looking for the answers you need. I'm just here to stimulate you to look into the Word of God type thing, rather than them saying, "Wow, what a great sermon that was." I said, "No, I want you to be lookers. You need to go through the Bible." And so I would preach that way when I preached. I'm not an authority on this,
Yeah.
and I don't really want to be a celebrity. And I don't want you to come here for Barney. I want you to come here because you're seeking God in your need. And it was always a needy thing. People were needy. There was a lot of addiction, a lot of depression, a lot of mental illness. People just didn't have any help.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, because it wasn't anything where Jesus is really happy to have me on his team, you guys, and I'm going to show you why. It's like I said to people all the time. I said, look, I wouldn't join any country club that would have me as a member. Because I knew where I came from, and I never forgot that. I never forgot
Yeah.
that. This guy is a reluctant leader, and only because God's really wanted me to do this, because I'd rather go off somewhere and sell cars, to be honest with you. Because people, it's like when somebody asked the old retiring pastor, give me a word of advice, because he was just starting out in his ministry. We were just starting out, and he thought for a while, and he goes, sheep bite. You know what that means?
No.
People that are in your church congregation are referred to as sheep,
Yeah.
and they bite.
And they bite.
They bite.
That makes sense.
And I'm not good at that. If people are complaining, it's like one guy came to me. We changed the whole worship style in the church plant. It wasn't organs, and it wasn't, how
Yeah.
great old hymns and stuff. They're
Yeah.
great, but it just wasn't a style of ministry. And she came to me one day. She goes, I can tell that it's more becoming a rock group, praise group here. And she said, I think I'm going to go ahead and leave. You don't need me anymore as an organist. Now, I never said that to her. We incorporated that into the music,
Hmm.
but she was an older gal. It was
Yeah.
obviously, and I said to her, Marilyn, well, thanks for all the work you've done here. But I said, hey, when you find that perfect church, please don't join it because you'll ruin it. Now, I was real raw. And I had God would bring me in to clean up messes, man. I can't even tell you. It is brutal.
That's
Brutal,
okay.
brutal.
Yeah.
But I never felt like I was called to that, the religious part,
Okay.
and the acting. There's a lot. The religious pride, I'm still astonished by it. I'm dumbfounded by it. How anybody can stand before a living God
Yeah.
and act like there's some paragon of success in what it means to be a Jesus guy. I don't get that. But that's my story. My story is not sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows.
Yeah.
My stories, daggers and darkness and thunderstorms.
Wow.
In a unique way, like you said, it's really so. But I could always relate to the addicts, you know, and the mentally ill and the people that had trauma, PTSD, sexually abused. So my churches became that. They were filled with that.
Oh, and that's what you're doing right now, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, I do some of it still.
Well, I
But
mean, because like right now, aren't you going to prisons?
yeah, I go into a rehab center
Okay.
and preach. But sporadically, I'm getting older now. And these are young guys. They go, this guy's just an old guy. But you eventually lose your influence. But
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, yeah. But see, those people are just different.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'd have, for instance, in one of my churches, I'd have every stunt double in Hollywood, Sly Stallone's, what's the guy, Harrison Ford, you know,
They're stunt double though.
yeah, doubles.
They're,
But these guys were hardcore Hollywood people that
yeah.
had come converted, and our church related to those guys. Hollywood's a weird lifestyle,
Okay.
and these guys would be a part of our church, and because we attracted people that were different,
Okay.
you know, and these guys were hardcore, man.
Wow. That's quite the life.
A lot to say about my ministry. I'm glad, kind of, in some ways, I'm on the other end of that now.
Well, I don't know that. I mean, I'm just really glad I've gotten to know you, Barney, and I've learned a lot from you. And just even coming back to like this perspective, because I grew up in, I would think that more religious, right? It was, you know, because like the Lutheran church,
Formal
very
structure. Yeah,
formal
exactly.
structure. Anyways, yeah, but and quite honestly, like I don't know if we would have wanted to invite you to our church,
Well,
which is sad.
yeah. Well, see, that's the thing is I never wanted to go.
Yeah,
I said, God, why are you sending me there? I don't even want to go into those other people,
yeah.
you know. And they get mad at me. And
What's Barney doing here?
yeah, yeah.
You
This guy
know?
stinks.
Yeah.
No, I know him. He's from the street. I know what he used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because I didn't know how to put the robes on, and I never did.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to sit and stand at the right times and pray with, "Oh Lord God, Thou Almighty, Thou flowery, praise God of all." I got up and just talked to God. It was
Yeah.
I did not know how to play the game,
Okay.
whatever the game was.
Yeah.
Like every culture, the spiritual culture has its own protocol, dress. Like the church we go to, you and I. That's a beautiful church. Beautiful
Yeah.
people go to church there. I don't know how people that aren't so beautiful. I mean, I see people all the time. It's like they run their own fitness programs,
Yeah.
and they're beautiful,
Yeah.
and life's pretty good. You live in Carlsbad. I don't call it Carlsbad. I call it Carlsgood. There's a lot. Anyway.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, this was a great episode
Different.
to
Yeah.
to introduce
Did I
Barney.
scare you?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
And I'm much more laid down now. My wife is really, I'm a good family man. I always was, and
Well, yeah.
she.
I mean, you have just quickly. You have how many
I
kids?
have two boys. They
Two
all
boys.
live here. One just is moving to Rancho Santa Fe. He's doing quite
Big
well in real
big
estate.
time if he's moving to Rancho Santa Fe, right?
Yeah, and his in-laws live there in the Bridges, and so what's funny is that they don't. I'm inferior. I call us the inferior laws to all my in-laws
That's funny.
because they're so successful. But a lot of it is they've followed the principles of Christ and implemented them in their lives in terms of church and raising their children and the beliefs and the values.
Wow.
And they've done that, and they've just been enormously
Yeah.
Successful because it's funny. The Bible, I didn't know it was like that. I just thought I wanted eternity sewed up. But
Yeah.
this stuff works in the day to day. I was
100%.
blown away by that.
Yeah.
Oh man! So that's then our success started to come. They all got money and they're all flying around. And they got problems, but they know how to
Yeah.
handle the problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they don't. They don't. I'm older now, and they go, Dad, why'd you waste your life just being in church work? Should have been making money. So that's my little secret. I know why I was doing it.
Well, and I think too, I mean, that was your potential. That was your calling,
It was.
right?
I didn't know.
You
I couldn't
know,
have made money.
when you're there, when you get there, it's going to be Barney. Like you done well, good and faithful servant, right?
Yeah, and I've learned that he takes care of me.
Yeah.
I never had to manipulate it or be intentional about it or create it. It just was there. And it was enough to get by on because we lived week to week for 40 years. And all of a sudden, I got all this money in the bank. What's going on here?
Yeah.
There's something weird here. You know,
Yeah.
like the house, we would build a house where we were pastored at, and we'd sell it 30 years later. It'd be worth $1.3 million. I got all this equity in the bank. And then suddenly I got to meet with I had no clue. I just was there pastoring.
That's wild.
It is pretty wild. I mean,
That's so
I talk,
cool.
sometimes it can be a little bit, people can't relate to it.
Yeah.
But I was that guy. Greg Laurie is that guy still.
Yeah.
That you cannot, that guy is not in it for any other reason because Greg always says something I love. One of the greatest things he says is heaven's going to be filled not with perfect people, but forgiven people.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. And Greg's the same way he is today as he was when he came to Jesus. Same way. Kick butt.
That's so cool.
Straightforward, man.
That's cool.
It is.
Jesus Revolution. So you don't have any roles in Jesus Revolution. You can't pick out a guy that says, "Oh, that guy was played after Barney," right? Nothing like that. But you were just right there with.
Well, I was with all the young guys,
Yeah.
like Greg Laurie's and all the young boys, Lonnie Frisbee and all those guys.
Yeah.
But my wife was always in the structured formal church,
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't want to give that up.
Yeah.
Because she knew I was a little bit off. I'd like to go to really wild and charismatic meetings.
wow.
And scared her. So I said, okay, we're going to raise a family, and I'm going to bring some sanity that you think to it. So I became and did I did the church thing, but I did it my own way, which is why it took a lot of heat because I just I rubbed in the wrong way. But that was okay. I'm none the worse wear for it.
Oh, good stuff, Barney.
Yeah.
Well, more episodes to come, and hopefully we see more of you, Barney.
Yeah. You let me know.
Awesome.
Good to talk to you, buddy. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.